This is task 3B part 4 and it's the third video tutorial where we're going to look at the final calculation that we need to make, which is the percentage charge rate. So we're looking here at the equipment charge rate, which will be a percentage for each item. If we look at what we've done so far, we've calculated all of these things here, but our additional equipment charge, which is a percentage of the basic weekly charge, is always 0 at the moment because our total charge rate is 0%, so 0% of 400 or of any weekly charge will always be 0, and that's 0% because at the moment all our charge rates are set to 0. So we need to look at how we're going to set these values here. So if we just go back a bit further up in the question, we can see here how the additional equipment charges are calculated. So it says these are calculated based on the type of equipment installed. So here's our type. We've got original equipment and we've got upgraded equipment for our types. It says all upgraded equipment are chargeable, but some original equipment are not chargeable. So if we have a look, here's an upgraded piece of equipment, okay, and we can see that that is chargeable. All of our upgraded are chargeable. One of our original is, one of our original here isn't. It then says that chargeable equipment are then calculated based on these rules here. So it says all chargeable original equipment will be 1% of the weekly charge. So any chargeable original equipment here needs to be 1%. Remember that if it's not chargeable, then it will be 0%. And what I've done here is we've started to put the logic together. Let's just pull that back again in terms of pseudocode. So I said here that if it's chargeable, then we're going to do some sort of calculation. If it's not chargeable, then it will be 0. So I put that in already. I've also said that if it's chargeable, where we've got the original equipment is 1% of the charge, then we're saying here, if original, then we'll have 1%. So if it's an original piece of equipment, the charge like here will need to be 1%. Otherwise, if we have a look what we've got, the options are bronze standard. So here's the standard. We've got bronze, silver and gold standard equipment. Bronze standard upgraded equipment. Okay, so if it's not original, then it must be upgraded. And so if it's upgraded, these are the options that we're going to go through. And we're going to say if the standard is bronze, okay, then we'll have 3% of the weekly charge. So what I've done is I've just changed some of the colouring here so we can now follow what we're doing. So we have our chargeable equipment. Remember, if it's chargeable and if it's original, then it's 1%. So if it wasn't original, it must be upgraded. So all of this block here is the upgraded block. So if it's upgraded and it's bronze, then it needs to be 3%. If it's upgraded and it's silver, then we want 6%. That's what we're saying here. And otherwise, well, if it's not bronze and it's not silver, it must be gold. And for gold, we want it to be 10%. And then we get to our else command at the bottom, our else part of the function, the branch, where it's showing a 0. So if it wasn't chargeable, so if chargeable, we go through this bit. Otherwise, it wasn't chargeable, and therefore we're going to charge 0. Okay, so now we know the logic that we're going to use. We need to now implement this into the charge rate. Now, the charge rate isn't actually calculated on the form. If you recall, we created a query called equipment installations, and this is where we calculated the charge rate. So we need to be working in our design view of this query, and we're going to be focusing on the charge rate for this. So we're going to be looking at this part here. So I've just changed the configuration of our screen so we can see things a bit clearer. So here's our charge rate, and if you notice, we set it to 0 for everything. So this is where we now need to start looking at what is it actually going to be. So if I try and write the whole if statement all in one go, then I'm going to get it wrong. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm bound to. So what I'm going to do is build it up bit by bit and see what happens. So I'm going to start by saying, well, let's have a look at what happens if it's chargeable. So I'm going to say if, so if, which is the way Access does it, if chargeable. So in other words, if a chargeable field is true, so if chargeable, then let's put in a percentage rate of 1%. Now, we need to note that we've either got to divide the whole lot by 100, or I can divide the bits by 100 as I go along, because they're going to be percentage values. So it needs to be 0.01 for 1%. So if it's chargeable, then we'll have 1%. If not, we'll have 0. So I'm just assuming that everything's going to be original at the moment. We'll deal with what we're going to, the upgraded part, later. Let's just focus on this and let's say if it's chargeable, 1%, otherwise 0. Let's have a look at how that pans out. So here we go. We can now see our charge rate set as 0.01 if it's chargeable and as 0 if it's not chargeable. So far our function is working. Now if I'd made a mistake in there, I would know about it and I'd know that the mistake was local to this part, and I'd have been able to deal with it at that stage. Now remember I said that it's being displayed as a percentage, and therefore we need to have everything divided by 100. So I'm just going to have a look at the property sheet here, and we'll have a look at the property sheet for this field, and I'm going to change format to be a percentage and decimal places of 0. Don't need any decimal places in here. In another task you might of course need decimal places. So now if we have a look, I can actually see that it's being displayed as 1% and 0%, so I can be absolutely sure that my query is working as I expected it to. Okay, so what we now need to do is look at, right, okay, well, not everything is going to be 0.001, or not everything is going to be 1%. It's only going to be 1% if it's original equipment. So what I need to do is I need to say if it's chargeable, then if it's original equipment, let's go for that 1%. Okay, so here I need to put in a new if statement. So otherwise, not otherwise, if it's chargeable, then if, okay, the equipment type, so type equals original. Now notice the field name is in square brackets, the value that we're comparing it with is in speech marks. So if the type is original, then 0.001. And I'm going to close the brackets off at that point because I'm not putting in the else part just yet. All I've put in is the if then. So we'll leave the else till later, but we have still got, well, if it wasn't chargeable, we're going to have 0. So now when I look at this, I can now see that all upgraded equipment hasn't got a charge. Okay, because we haven't set that yet. So that's really good. I'm pleased with that. We've got 0% for original equipment that's not chargeable, and 1% for original equipment that is chargeable. So we'll go back to the design view of our query. So if it was original, then it was 1. But if it's not original, we then need to have a look at, well, what is a standard? So what's a standard going to be? So I've gone for 0.001. So if it's not original, we need to have a look at what the standard is, and depends on the standard. Now, of course, if it's not original, it must be upgraded. So we're looking at if it was upgraded and the standard is bronze, then we want the value to be 3. So if it was original 1%, 0.001. Otherwise, if type equals standard, so not type, but the standard equals bronze, then let's have 0.03. Okay, now I've started off a new if, and I forgot to put my opening brackets in, and I need to put my closing brackets in as well. Let's have a look, see if that works. Right, so I'm looking for anything with 3%. Here we go. Bronze upgraded 3%, great. Bronze, upgraded 3%, great. Bronze, original, wasn't chargeable, 0%, that's good. Bronze, it was original, it was chargeable, that still stays as 1%. But bronze, upgraded, is 3%. So we're doing well. So if the standard is bronze, then we go for 3%. Otherwise, if the standard is silver, we're going to go for 6%. So let's put that one in. So otherwise, if, I'm going to make some mistakes deliberately on here, okay, standard equals silver, then 0.06. Okay, so you can see I've made a few mistakes and it's coming up telling me about those. So first of all, standard, I didn't put a square bracket around it. Now I know that the mistake is going to be in this area because this is the new bit that I've added, and I can always go back to the old bit because I can undo what I've done, and I can just start writing it this bit again if I need to, if I'm in a real pickle. Also, I didn't use brackets for the if statement, so I need a bracket there, and there should still be one error. It's saying the wrong number of arguments. Well, that's because I'm still missing another bracket. So I said if the standard is silver, 0.006, but I haven't said what else it's going to be, so I'm just going to close the bracket off, and now that's fine. So what we've done is we've said otherwise, if the standard is silver, let's have 6%. So let's have a look, and here we go, silver, upgraded handrail, 6%, brilliant. Silver, original, still staying at 1%, that's great. Well, if it wasn't silver, then as long as it was original equipment, so we're in this section here, so as long as it was still original equipment, then it must be gold. So if it wasn't silver, it must be gold, and gold is 10%. So we'll put that in. And let's have a look. And of course, because I put 10 in, and I didn't divide by 100, I've got 1000% there. So let's just go back, change that to 0.1, and now we can see 10%. So that was gold upgraded. Gold original that wasn't chargeable, still 0%, that's good. Gold original that is chargeable, still 1%, that's good. Gold original, gold upgraded that is chargeable, 10%. So everything's working. So let's just go back and talk through this again. So if chargeable, then. So if chargeable, then 1. Okay, so if original, then 1. So if chargeable, then if the type is original, 1%. Otherwise, if the standard is bronze, then 3%. So otherwise, if the standard is bronze, 3%. Otherwise, if the standard is silver, then 6%. Otherwise, the standard must be gold, and therefore 10%. Now if you look at your pseudocode, every time you see an end if, you need to see a closed bracket. There's one, and there's one. And every time you see an else, we need to see a comma. So there's our comma, 0, and another closed bracket. So whenever you see a then, you need a comma. Whenever you see an else, you need a comma. Whenever you see an if, you need an open bracket. Whenever you see an end if, you need a closed bracket. So that's another way of checking that everything works. So we have a look at that. We're happy with that. Let's close down equipment installations. And now let's open up the campervan form. And of course we need to see this a bit bigger this time. And let's have a look. It's now pulled through the charge rates, which means that for this one we've got 1% for silver, but that's because it was original. 0% for an original that wasn't chargeable. 10% for upgraded gold. 3% for upgraded bronze, 6% for upgraded silver. And it's worked out our total now because we put that in before. Remember, we put the sum in, so that's 20%. 20% of 400 is £80. That £80 has been added to the weekly charge, less the age discount of 50, which gives us a total of £430. So that is all your calculations completed. Well done.